Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome to the Unfazed Facts podcast, where we talk everything Gym Leader Challenge. I'm your host, Joshua Benson, along with my co-host, Jeff Baisch, and we have a special little guest here for you. He is a 3-time regional champion and also at the Full Grip GLC 1K events, a winner and runner-up to the ones that happened just before they went away. And with them possibly coming back up again, we have JW Kriewall right here with us in the flesh. And I heard that history remembers winners. And
that it does.
Yeah, and I'm glad to have you on. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, doing really well, fellas. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Do you have any holiday things happen lately?
Let's see, holiday things happen. I mean, we went to Baltimore for, we try to keep it easy with my family and my wife's family. So we always do Christmas with my wife's family in the Baltimore area. And we always do Thanksgiving with my family in Michigan. And that just keeps it easy. We don't have to, we went here one year and we got to go back and, we forgot. Where did we go? Whatever. So we just always do that. Baltimore was a lot of fun. We got, just more kids being added to the family. So, I have, brother and sister-in-law that have had another kid over the last year, brother and sister-in-law that had another kid over the last year. So it's just kind of fun. Like every year that we come back for Christmas, it's just like more people are there.
Yeah.
More little babies.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's
cool.
a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Usually we'll travel up to Pennsylvania. And I know that I think you're in New Jersey now, aren't you? Or something like
Unfortunately,
that.
I am. I sure am.
So you're in New Jersey, Home's in Ohio. So I'm like sandwiched in between you guys kind of a little bit.
There you go.
Which way do I go while I'm up there in Pennsylvania, But yeah, we travel about 1,100 miles from Oklahoma up there. We drive with our pup, and it's just a wild west up there, man. It's crazy, especially whenever it starts to get to that 20-hour point and you're just dying.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah,
I can imagine.
What about you?
We are, I'm in Columbia, South Carolina. And so like my family lives in Atlanta, and then my wife's family lives in South Georgia, where we went to college, by the way, repping my Georgia Southern t-shirt. Whoop, whoop. Go Eagles. But anyway, we just have like a triangle between our families. And so it's really just whoever we feel like seeing over the holidays, which is usually everyone. We kind of try to make the trip, but it's a nice little like 4 hours there, 4 hours there, 4 hours back. So it's just a nice little triangle.
Hey, nice little 12-hour trip. But we have JW on to talk about some of the new stuff that is, coming up. Full Grip Games just announced, I believe. I was hoping that we could get it in before they announced it, just to kind of talk about the illusion of it happening, but we now know that it's kind of confirmed that it will be happening. And I know that I met JW at Arlington Regionals once. You signed my enamorous playmat, and I was hoping that one day that would just stick in your head and it would just stay there. It's pretty fun. It's pretty funny. I always like playing with that playmat. It has a story behind it. But I know that you played in that Gym Leader Challenge event there. And I think that you did decently well. You're kind of like middle of the pack. I remember you were kind of disappointed with how your performance was that day, but I think at that 1K that you won with that same deck, or maybe a little bit different of that. So why don't you give us a little bit about like your experience at that Full Grip 1K, since we're kind of coming back.
Yeah. Well, that's really fun. I mean, the format that Andrew created, over the pandemic was just a big help for a lot of players, because I think there are some players that get a little bit overwhelmed with the changes that happen in standard on, almost a monthly basis, right? Because they're adding, main sets or mini sets, and you got to just kind of keep buying cards and you keep looking ahead. And GLC is a little bit more relaxed in that sense, and in that, you take a deck and you build it once and you basically have that same deck that can compete in this format for, years on end. And that's what happened. So, really exciting to see Full Grip with the new play space It looks beautiful. I've seen pictures online. Looks awesome. It's going to be able to host a ton of people and, make these full grip 1K events, these GLC events that they've ran in the past, even better, as they bring this format back. So really looking forward to it. In terms of, where it was, it was a great break. There were 4 1Ks, and I think I attended 3 of them, if I remember. And maybe you guys can tell me otherwise. But I think I was in 3 of them, and they were just a really nice break from standard, because I'm an old head, so I've been playing for about 14 years now at this point, and to be able to play with some of those expanded cards, like I really enjoy the expanded format because I get to play with some of those cards that are very formative for me. VS Seeker and Guzma and Battle Compressor and all the Pokemon. Like there's just a ton of things that are very nostalgic when I play the GLC tournaments, and I'm just stoked to have them back. And they were a really fun experience. When they first came around, when those first 4 events were held, I'm again just really stoked that they're coming back.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited too. I've been trying to find some flights that are affordable to go up there in the next couple months, and for me to justify paying for the flight and all that, I was like, I have to win, and then I would make just some of my money back. And I was like, man, I really want to go. But it seems so fun. Like there's so many different experiences that you can have when you go to one of these things. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think a lot of it is, because I had gone to a few and just, you're meeting new people, and I think everyone's really excited about the format, and it feels a little more, even though, I think there's more decision-making and thinking involved in GLC than standard format. It is one of those things where, the people are more like, it's very casual. Like it does feel very familial. Everyone's there, like supporting, this format. And, I was able to, when I was there, just, meet up with people and we ran a couple of cubes and we went out to dinner with people that I hadn't, met before. And it was just nice to meet more people and get involved in that community. So, if you're thinking about it, right, and you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm on the fence. It was great for me to meet people and to get more ingrained in that community.
Yeah, I'm over the fence. I'm going there in my head, but it's the pocket that is stuck on the fence with all my money falling out that's keeping me from going.
Yeah, just sell some cards.
There you go. I need to do that. I have a problem with holding on to things. I've got a stack. I've got a stack right here on my desk, and these are just a bunch of V Maxes and just.
Dude, I got the stack right here, man. I got the stack, but it's got it's my stack of these are the cards that I need to get graded, but I just haven't gotten them graded yet. It's like all my the Charizards and the what do I have, the Latias from Surging Sparks, and I got all that crap just sitting on my desk here, man. It's it's crazy. So I got all the Japanese stuff. I opened a little bit of the newest Japanese set for fun, and I just got all that crap here. I need to really get on my game and get in terms of selling stuff.
Those stacks just grow if you don't tend to them.
They sure do.
Yeah, but is that 5 stacks up here right now too? So I'm right there with you. Does every TCG player just have 50 stacks of cards on there?
We need a desk audit. Yeah. Right. I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, exactly. 5 stacks.
So bad. I think that's something that we can all have in common with. I'm looking around right now, and it's just insane. I got a stack of Chipper Jones from the Atlanta Braves cards just on here for no reason. It's insane. But is that one of the things that you do to kind of make it to these tournaments and stuff like that? If you don't have the funds necessarily through just your natural everyday a job or something like that, you're like, hey, I got some cards laying around.
Yeah. You're talking about financing tournaments and stuff. I try to, only go to tournaments out of my disposable income. So I'm never attending a tournament and saying, okay, I need to, top 32 to make my money. That's just not how I approach it. Just generally, I'm very frugal or fiscally, conservative with the money that I spend. And so, generally, and I don't have a ton of, big financial sponsorships or anything like that. So it's not like I'm getting these tournaments paid for. So I pay for it out of my own pocket, and I try not to spend anything that I don't, have, right? I'm not putting myself into any sort of debt to try to go to these tournaments. And, hopefully, like if it works out did last year, I can turn a bit of a profit, from performances, and that's fun. But it's all kind of that disposable income. I don't think of it as any sort of investment or anything like that,
Yeah.
So, and then all the cards, I really like holding on to the cards. That's maybe a weakness of mine, or a strength, maybe. I don't know. It's hard to say, right? Because I have Andrew, right, on one side, and he has a massive card collection, but he sold some real big Grail cards to buy his house, and that was like right before the pandemic, before it's like blew up, and I know he regrets it. So I'm kind of more like, I keep pretty much every pack, or at least a substantial amount of every like pack prize winning. I just throw it in the closet. I open product and I'm like, okay, I'll just put it in a binder, and then I just don't look at that binder for 10 years. Like I have cards that are just like sitting in a binder that I opened. I have like a bunch of primes from when I first started out, and a bunch of those old cards that are just they're in there somewhere, and I just haven't moved them, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that's a strength or a weakness, but
it could. It just depends on what it is. It really depends. Now, if like for me, it's a weakness. 100%, it's a weakness. But maybe for you, with the vastness of the collection and stuff like that, where you do that, then maybe so. I remember, and we're getting a little off here, but I remember, and we'll reel it back in, but I'll tell this story first. I went to a kind of like a game exchange, or like a place where you can buy retro type stuff. And I go in there and I saw, base set stuff. And there was a Charizard, a Venusaur, and a Blastoise. And the Charizard was $20. The Blastoise was $8. And the Venusaur was $8 too. And I was like, man, these are expensive. But I went ahead and bought them anyways. And then a couple of years later, that big explosion happened. I was like, oh, that was the time to get those, because I could not necessarily just afford to get them now.
100%.
But to reel us back in a little bit, I know you're the type of player, JW, that you kind of like to get backed into a corner every now and then. And you like to play decks, especially in GLC, that can take multiple prizes. So I know in your first GLC tournament where you were runner-up, or maybe it was your second, with Lightning, you did a really good job, made it to the finals, but just couldn't, take that win. And then in the next one, on that, I believe it was the last one they had, you play with Dark, and you were able to take that win with Dark. And those are both two different styles of decks, but at the same time, they kind of have the same come together point where you're trying to take two different prizes at the same time. What were some of your thoughts going into your games during that time with that meta at the time?
Yeah. I mean, with GLC, I generally have, or at least with early GLC, I know now kind of with bans, it's maybe a little bit different now because they've reduced some of these, kind of core tenets. But yeah, one of those core tenets of a deck that I look for in GLC is to be able to take multiple prizes. I value that extremely highly. So when you talk about the Lightning deck, I know, again, now it's banned, but the Amazing Rare Raikou was such a good card for that archetype. And then when you talk about Dark, you have the Guzzlord, right? And so both of those cards can take multiple prizes. They do so in a little bit of, different ways, but that's what I really value that in a GLC deck. If there's a deck that, and it might even be, it just has good spread capability, right? So you can take multiple prizes like that, or in the case of Guzzlord, you're taking multiple prizes off of a knockout. That's something that to me is really valuable to have somehow in the game. Yeah. If you can do that, that's a really good thing. The other thing that I really value is being able to accelerate energy. Now with the Lightning deck, you had, or you have, I should say, you could play like Magneton, Flaffy, electric, these kinds of cards. I opted to play a Flaffy in my original list. So that's a big thing. I like that a lot. Another thing that I really value, and this is maybe more so for the dark deck that I played, was really cheap energy costs. And so that's a big thing with dark, is like, I love dark for that reason. Outside of maybe the Guzzlord, everything can attack for like 1 energy, right? Or I guess Zoroark can attack for a double turbo or a twin or whatever. So that's something that I really like as well, because it's just less setup. It's less cards that you need to have in your hand to enable your combos. And then another thing that I really value, that I think is generally undervalued, I will say, by the GLC community now when I see lists come out, is just general consistency. So that's like, if I'm debating between more Pokemon or more supporters, like, I'm always going to gravitate toward more supporters, because you just need to draw into the cards that make your deck function. So there were I got a lot of flack for, and I'm looking at this list right now, this Lightning deck, and people were like, well, why are you including all of these extra extra supporters? Like, you could cut those down to play better trainers. But I'm like, no, I really would value having certain, and I think I played in dark, like I played a copycat, that wasn't necessarily standard, playing things like, Ball Guy, and really valuing that. Again, kind of, we were thinking multiple formats back, so there are better now, but just really valuing that supporter, having a supporter every single turn, that's a valuable supporter that you can play, that will boost the consistency of the deck. I think that's a big deal.
I mean, I don't hearing you say all of this, JW, because, a couple episodes back, we did exactly this. We talked about CRC, consistency, redundancy, and comeback. And just everything you're saying is 100% how I try to attack the format. Watching back some of your old stuff, too, you were even talking about some of, like, the best trainers that you consider, at least some of the best supporters. And you were like, Sonya is such a great and flexible card. And I was like, JW and I are going to click on a different level. Sonya lovers, baby. Let's get to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's good to have these cards that can do multiple things. That's true in the standard format too. Where you have a card that can fulfill multiple purposes over the course of any one game. A good example would be like, Cynthia and Caitlin, right? That's a card that draws, but then it can also get you back a resource. There are these cards that crop up, and this is important, I think, for even like if you're teching out a standard deck. I always try to have kind of a secondary justification for any sort of tech that I play. Okay, I really need it for this specific situation, but it also has a use case, over in this other matchup or in these other few matchups. Like, it can also fulfill this very minor role, so I'm always looking for those cards that have that versatility, that add the consistency.
Piggybacking off of this, I need to know your thoughts on Battle VIP Pass and Gym Winner Challenge. Are you a Battle VIP player, or do you hate it?
I don't think I would play it. Yeah, because I haven't played a GLC tournament in, I mean, maybe since Battle VIP Pass. I don't know. I can't. I know that I didn't play it. If I had, played since then, I don't know that I haven't played Battle VIP Pass. So I'm not the biggest fan, especially when we have, Buddy Poffin. You have all these insane ball cards, Nest Ball, Quick Ball, Ultra Ball, cards that actually do something every turn of the game. Again, I also value that. I think that adds to consistency. So Battle VIP Pass is strong. And maybe you could get away with playing it in a deck that's very like item search focus. Like if you're playing, Arvins and Skylas and, whatever those supporters that, get you an item card right off the gate. Maybe it's really good in those builds, but I don't think I would play it.
Same. So I value that.
Yeah. So to like kind of go on like from that, you saying that you haven't been doing it, have you been in the meta too much or like keeping up with it here and there since you've been at those full grip?
Yeah. I mean, certainly keeping up with it because it is really interesting to see what people come up with. And I think that, Andrew's done a really good job in promoting the format in a way that people are very like interested in sharing, and interested in brewing new things, right? With the badge concept, I thought that was brilliant. For different stores or different leagues to, and obviously they do it at Full Grip where, if you win with a certain type, you get your badge next to your name. And so people are always trying to come up, break the bad types, right? And so that, again, that lends itself to people like sharing that information. Hey, I just won with fire. Like, here's this archetype. Hey, I just won with, this crazy, water spread deck. Like, here it is, whatever it is. Hey, I did this really cool, unique thing that got me this badge, and that's really fun. And so, one deck that I've been meaning to put together that I've been following is just like the colorless stuff. Like, all that seems so cool, and I understand that they banned the enabler for the Archeops.
Yeah.
But it does still seem like colorless has just a lot of these big beat stick, heavy HP Pokemon that seemed like a lot of fun. So that's something that I've been meaning to cobble together here.
Oh yeah, did you see the new Hops Pokemon coming out for colorless as well recently?
Yes, the Snorlax, right? You're getting that, and the Cramorant.
Yeah.
Yep. Pretty cool.
It's going to be crazy. Like that tool that came out lets your Hops Pokemon attack cost one colorless less, and then you can just easily get that out, use a Guzman Hala for a stadium to maybe get that Snorlax out, or maybe that new stadium that lets you hit for more again, and just be able to get all that combo out like in turn 2 going first.
Yep.
It's insane. It's really cool. It probably something might get banned out of that because it actually is one of those really big combos. So I'm hoping that if anything, the tool gets banned, but we're not going to talk about bans here. Not going to talk about bans. Now the meta, would you say like from the Full Grip 1Ks then and like kind of going into the meta now, would you say that how does it differ? Would you say that it's faster, more diverse? You have to put more thought into it or anything like that?
It does seem more diverse, and that just, again, it might just be kind of my cursory, glance at it. I back when I was playing, with the 1Ks, it seemed like a lot of the player base, and I could be way off, but this is just my memory, and so you guys are probably more on top of this than I am, but seemed just very much like, okay, we had to play, I don't know, maybe one of the top 4 archetypes. You have like grass and water were huge back kind of at that time, and that just was kind of like the default deck. I felt like certainly water had that kind of just like, if you're new to GLC, just like play water. And then, dark, I felt like was quite good. And then you maybe had like, I felt like lightning was quite strong. So I would say like those 4 were just kind of top tier back then. But now I'm just seeing, where, and that was back then where like, fighting just, you couldn't do anything with.
Yeah.
Psychic was good. I would say it was pretty good, but you had fire. Like you couldn't. No one could win with fire. It's just not good. But now you're getting more and more cards. They're buffing all those strategies, and so I really just feel like with GLC, it's such a healthy format that realistically any deck can win. At any given time, and I think that's really, really cool. That's a really cool thing about this format.
Yeah, I 100% agree with any deck can win at any time, given the circumstances that allows it to, blossom in that tournament. And, we're always talking about different metas, and you have your locals meta, you have your online meta, you have all these different metas in GLC, like depending on where you're at, unlike like with standard, where you have everybody playing the same format at all these big regionals and stuff like that. So it's more, a format that's more refined to the point where everybody knows what the best deck is, and every now and then there might be a really cool tech card that somebody comes out with. But with GLC, you just never know what's going to happen. Your deck might be good in this bubble, but it might not be as good in a different bubble. And then when you get all those bubble combined, you just have no clue what can come of it. It it's just a smorgasbord of different types. And I think that's like at a full grip games 1K where everybody comes in, regionals in and of itself is kind of like that. But I think on that full grip 1K, when everybody's playing that GLC, it just pile drives together and you get some really cool tournaments that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And just with, the nature of the format being singleton and having 60 cards in a deck, there's just so much to keep track of over the course of any one game, right? So, as opposed to standard, okay, we all kind of know those top decks as you're talking about. We all kind of know those standard techs to like, okay, watch out for if they have, this thing, like you can play around that. But it's a lot harder to do that in GLC just because there's so many cards to choose from. Just again, going back to black and white era. And then there's so many cards that can be in any one deck that, somebody could just whip something out and oh crap, I didn't account for that card. And, maybe I should have, and do the game. So yeah, really, really interesting and fun. And again, why I think that any deck piloted correctly can, do major damage at one of these tournaments.
No, yes. And I think, whenever I'll have a follow-up question after this, but whenever you played your dark deck, and you won with that dark deck specifically, I know that Jeff wants to ask you about a specific Zoroark and the difference between what made your choice of that one and the other one. Would you like to ask that, Jeff? Because I really want to know about this.
You basically just did. I mean, I'm someone who loves playing my tech cards. If you've ever seen a Hitmonchan Pros list, I played Ninja Boy. I just love Ninja Boy. So
there you go.
Keep my Ninja Boy in my discard pile because I'll VS secret that thing back in a minute. But I was watching you were kind of talking over the Tricky Gym stream over your victory, and you get down to a couple turns and you're talking about stand-ins or work, and you're just talking about how great this card is, and I love that card too. You're talking about how it's so good with Hoopa, how you just get to do 90 over and over and over again. Well, I think the meta's changed a bit now. Someone asked you, I think while you were streaming, foul play Zoroark. Is that a card that was in your mind? You had a very good answer then. Again, with you kind of still keeping up with things, is your head still, if you're playing dark, are you still standing in, or is it time to foul play with the Whale Lords?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I would need to do a little bit more research on the exact use cases, because I think generally speaking, to reuse the Hoopa and do 90 still seems like a pretty viable strategy. I mean, you still have a lot of these lower HP evolving archetypes that can just kind of blow through certain decks very quickly. But it does, and that's kind of the beauty of the format, right? Is like things would change, right? So if I were to enter a tournament, I would really have to think hard about it. And I would have to think hard about, whether or not that combo even makes sense to the point that, I would even play Hoopa, right? If I take out the Zoroark, big and Hoopa, so maybe I just cut that all together. But I still think 90 for 1 is pretty good. I don't know. I still think that's probably strong enough in this current meta. Although, like you say, I would need to revisit it. I would absolutely need to revisit it.
Yeah, because there's some cards out there right now that are kind of big and bad. You talked about fighting, and since then, Okidogi's come out.
Oh, yeah.
Is one of those big walls in fighting that if you don't have an answer for that, you don't really know what to do. And it's possible playing a dark deck to have an answer, being able to have just being able to hit back or something like that, being able to just answer back, or with a Wailord being able to hit that back with that 240 damage if you're playing special whales or something like that. So there is, but at the same time, I still think staying in has some validity, and being able to just make sure it's a nice quick deck. If you can get it done quick before they can do anything, you're in a good spot as well.
Well, and that's one of the benefits I think for dark. I've always thought about the dark archetype and still do, is that it's a pretty low to the ground deck, right? Like you're setting up, you're not setting up stage 2s. You're setting up stage 1s at max or basics, and for the most part, they're very energy efficient. Other than again the Guzzlord, but that has a pretty game attack effect. So, I would imagine that again just the Hoopa, the stand-in being able to attack for a single energy, that seems good in both those cases. And again, just being very low to the ground, not have a lot of setup, and not really rely on what your opponent has. In the case of the foul play, I think that's probably the way to go.
Possibly. We'll just have to see, We'll
Josh, not convinced. You're not convinced.
We'll have to have you come back and win it, man. It'd be awesome.
That'd be sick.
Josh,
I did know
stand-in Zerork's biggest fan. As someone who only plays Whale Lord, like he does not want to get attacked at all. He's like, "What it, baby? This Whale Lord,
everybody plays stand-in.
Back to the bench, healed, and back and attacking the hoop the next turn."
Everybody play your stand-in Zerorks, please. I would love it. But Dark nowadays has, I think you'd love the Dark deck now, JW, because it has Turbo Energize and different ways to get energy on the Guzzlord even quicker now. So sure. your love for taking 2 prizes is even more reachable in today's card pool that's available for Dark. I think that's one of the things that you would just love so much.
I mean, even Janine's exists now, right? Like you got 2 ways to attach 2 energy in 2 different turns, like a Beast Ring.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, Janine's. Yeah, that's an interesting card. I hadn't thought about that. The Turbo Energize seems. I don't know. I don't know. I would like just kind of initially thinking about that. I don't know if I'd want to use my attack for turn to power up a Guzzlord. I don't know, because I always thought about Guzzlord. You have the Beast Ring, right? So like just power it up. You can basically have 2 turns to power it up, right? You have 2 turns to find the combo, and that's like the one big combo right? So you kind of build your whole deck around, leading up to that 3-4 prize turn, and then you go take, unlock the Beast Ring and slap your twin energy down, and you're good to go. So I don't know. Maybe the Turbo Energize seems interesting. I feel like, again, I just want to put the pressure on the Hoopa, but maybe I'm just off base here.
Hey, you can just I think you're a brilliant deck builder too. So I think that whatever you choose is going to be just golden, absolutely golden. It's gonna be a good time.
Plus, it's just an easy card to trade away. Just like imagine, hey, I didn't draw on turn 1. Here's my easy trade. Give me 2 new cards.
That's true. It's true. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
You have to have that Turbo Energize early on. If you don't use it early on, then it's usually a dead card or something like that. But heading into a decent sized meta, it's a little bit more easier to understand a standard meta. But when going into those full grip games, then at least you can just tell us about your experience then. You don't have to think about like the now, because it still applies for the most part. Like, what are your thought processes going in to a huge diverse meta such as a full grip 1K? Do you just are you personally wanting to play your play style? And I know that there's 2 different decks at that time that you could play that had that play style. Or kind of what's your thought process behind choosing a deck?
Yeah, well, I've kind of talked about what I look for in a deck, and that's not necessarily, the only deck but I do value, again, taking the prizes, being able to accelerate energy in some capacity, and then just generally consistent. Like, those are big things for me. So that plays in. I think that play style is a big deal. I think that people that say that, the best players don't have a play style or shouldn't play into a play style, that doesn't make much sense to me, because you look at chess, they talk about play style all the time over there. Like, chess is all about you have certain players that are that they're going to be really aggressive, or there are certain players that that they might play certain gambits and it might not pay off. They gamble a lot, or there are some hyper conservative chess players, or whatever it is. I think that kind of is applicable to all games. So I've really kind of shifted my thoughts on that. Maybe a decade ago, I would have said, you play the best regardless of your play style. And certainly there are players that can do that. And I generally try to think of myself as someone, in like the standard format or GLC, pick up any deck and play that. But the older I get, the more I realize that that play style is, it's valid. Like, anyone that says that, it's not, or that you should just pick the best deck for the tournament. Like, I really kind of wrestle with that, because, you're going to play a deck better, you're going to have more likely better results with the deck that you have put more time into, more fun playing, and that you experienced with than the quote unquote best deck for that tournament. Because, there's so much variance that goes into a tournament. You think about, even like who you get matched up against. That's probably the biggest, the biggest form of variance that we have. So you could just hit the wrong matchups, and that's maybe more applicable in like standard format, I feel like, where, some of these weaknesses or some of these matchups are, enhanced as opposed to this slower GLC format. But, there's, and then the cards that you draw, what your opponent draws, like there's all this variance, like, so you want to reduce that variance by playing something that, a deck that inside and out, that like the back of your hand. And if you're able to do that, that you're going to have better overall results. Again, the matchups are a big thing. I've played in too many tournaments, GLC or standard or expanded, to know that, there have been tournaments where I have played the exact 60 cards of the winner, and they've gone all the way to the end, and I went 0-3 drop. I have done that, right? And I, like at Worlds a couple of years ago, my list 3 cards off the winning list, and I ended up 5-3, and and the winner ended up winning, right? And it's like, it's there's all these things that go into a tournament. So try to reduce that variance by playing something that like all the matchups, all the cards, all the text that could be used against you. I think that's much more valuable than trying, again, the quote unquote best deck or what the meta tells you that you should play.
Oh yeah, 100% agree. Like, I am a big proponent of playing a deck that you've been playing for a long while, putting some time into, and fit your play style. There's some decks that like I would love, like Metal. That's a type that I love. Metagross is my number one favorite Pokemon, and I really want to play it, but it's just so slow. It doesn't hit as big as I want, and I like to hit hard, and I like to hit fast, So it's just, it really goes into the play style. I've been playing Metal for a long while now, trying to do really well with it, and I cannot crack, the winning spot with it. And Jeff knows I've been trying to crack a winning spot with it, but it's just not my play style. No matter how bad I want it to be, it's not my play style. So I agree with you 100% that whenever you go into like a huge, diverse tournament of that magnitude for GLC, that you want to play something that you are rehearsed in, that you love playing, and it just comes to like, do you enjoy playing it as well? Because some people have the capability to play all sorts of decks, but they might not have the mental fortitude to keep playing a deck that's just really boring. I think
yeah, and you think about tournaments, and I think especially with GLC is like you are playing one round for 30 to 50 minutes. Yeah. And so there's very little room to like make mistakes, in my opinion, right? Like you have this whole drawn out game, and you're going back and forth with your opponent, one prize, and it's taking, 10, 15, 20 turns, double or in some cases triple the amount of time that a standard game would take. And then, you get to that one like apex point and you make a misplay, and then everything goes sideways and all falls apart. In the whole game, you spend 45 minutes crafting the strategy, and then you lose it because you make some mistake because, you weren't, either prepared for that, or, you were fatigued toward the end of those rounds, and you just playing the deck, or you didn't anticipate certain things that your opponent had. So yeah, big proponent of just, having fun with that deck and playing something you're super familiar.
Oh man, do you feel the same way, Jeff, about all that?
I mean, yeah. I mean, like one of the most important things, JW, that I agree with you on is play style. I'm glad that you brought it up. I'm glad that we talked about it. I'm a huge proponent of play style. For me, it's about switch outs. I want to play all the switch outs forever. Birdkeeper, Tate and Liza, all these cards, I love them so much. So hearing you say that just makes me feel so validated and heard and appreciated. So thank you for that.
There you go. There you go.
But I'm, when you're playing, I don't know how long these 1Ks are. JW, maybe you can shed some light. How long were the rounds, or how many rounds did you end up playing during your 1K adventures?
Yeah, I wanna say, and again, the fact checkers could check me on that, but for some of these 1Ks, I remember them being, like 7 rounds of Swiss, I want to say, and then moving into a top 8. And so those are generally all played on the same day. So that could be, a 8 a.m. get to the venue and then be done around, 8 or 9 type of thing. So it just makes, and I made the finals in a couple of them. So, those are long draining days, especially with those rounds that go again. I think it was, one round 50 minutes or 45 minutes. And again, I could be way off base there, but, I know that Andrew, or one game kind of in that longer time frame, just to make sure, because there are a lot of actions, a lot of things like,
yeah.
So, I want to say it was that kind of elevated, maybe it was 40 minutes. I don't remember exactly. Yeah. Made for just super long days.
And I don't care how much you love GLC. I mean, at the end of that day, you're going to be drained. And I think you mentioned it just right, head on the nail, play a deck that's consistent, sometimes a deck that can maybe do the work for you, but a deck that you're going to enjoy. I think that's what you're going to be looking for. If you're going to be spending 9 hours of your day, play something you're going to like. And if you're playing something you don't like, play something you're okay dropping with and go and get a crumble cookie. Like, it's okay. Value your time, leave and go do your thing. I think, could you imagine you're in round 6 and you're still in it for top cut and you're just so exhausted that you play Chorus's Tenacity and all of a sudden your Dragon player is just Kieran, 3 prizes.
Yeah,
let's go.
Right.
That's the type of mistake I see myself making in the situation.
100%. Man, those misplays can live with you for a while. I'm pretty sure there's some misplays I made in Arlington at the GLCL tournaments where I'm like, man, I'm so sad I did that because that cost me a game. I don't think about misplays in the main standard event, but those GLC games, you're about to go to bed and you think about, why didn't I put Manaphy down?
There you go. Yep.
Well, I got into GLC. I think I saw some guy one time post something like one of Andrew Hone's first videos. This is new format, and I was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Okay, whatever. That seems interesting." And I kind of blew it off. And then about 6 months later, I'm looking at some cards. I'm like, "Man, I wish I could play these." And then, anyways, I come across the video again, and this time I put my time into watching the video, and I was like, this is really cool. So I think that was whenever it first started, 2021, beginning 2022 or something like that. And all that to say, that's how I kind of got into GLC, was just coming across that I didn't really have anybody around, and I've kind of built up a community around my area, but it hasn't gotten the bite. They haven't taken the hook just yet fully. We're almost there, but they haven't taken the bait just yet. But I know that you've been a longtime friend, a great friend to Andrew Home for a long time. But other than that, what kind of drew you into Gym Leader Challenge? I know you talked about being able to play some of those old cards and stuff like that. But I know also the format at the time was also kind of extremely toxic, and it was kind of during the latter ends of the COVID era. And I know that there was a lot of things happening at that time.
Yeah. ADP, Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia was probably the big deck then. But, my thing is that I will play Pokemon cards in any capacity. I will play Pokemon cards in a box. I will play Pokemon cards with a box. I will play standard format. I will play expanded format. I will play the GLC format. I will play cube format. I will play Pokemon TCG Pocket. I will play anything. If you put a Pokemon card in front, and you challenge me, I will try to beat you in whatever format that you set out. So it's something that I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand. I tell people I don't get this. My brain is wired some way. I don't get it, because I initially started playing Pokemon with my dad. just me and my dad. And that was it. And I had no idea that the whole other ecosystem. I wish that we had just like stepped out to, the Toys R Us or something and gone to like one of those tournaments, or something. Cause I think it would have unlocked like a crazy different path for my life.
Oh yeah.
It's not a regret or anything, but it's just like, it was just me and my dad for like, years. And then I dropped the game and then came back to it in high school. And I would have loved GLC in high school because we all had old cards and that would have been super fun. But it was fine. Like I started a Pokemon club in high school, like started getting into it. And then I realized, holy crap, like, this was just something for me and my friends to do, but because we had all these old cards, but there's a whole, there is this whole other sphere of competitive stuff. And so, getting into that, but for some reason my brain is to just, and I like board games generally. Like I'm a big board game player, big gamer. But this is the one game that I haven't tired of in, again, I've been playing like my whole life competitively years. For some reason, I'm just wired. I'm built different, fellas, and I just can't shake it. I'll just play cards in any capacity. And so GLC is interesting in that it's, in terms of standard, like we were at this hyper aggressive standard, like potentially the most, the fastest, and people may say like current standard is pretty fast. And I agree, but that back then when you could, attack 3 times with ADP and win the game, that was just like some of the most aggressive hyper format that we had ever seen. And out of that birthed GLC, which was like a polar opposite, where you were forced to take these 6 prizes over the course of it. And it just felt like such a breath of fresh air. And I think that's what really captivated me. And, the initial GLC adopters.
Oh, yeah. I can get on board with that 100%. I have some buddies who really distaste ADP. And I mean, like to the point where if I say ADP or anything like that around them, there is a visceral reaction of how much they hated that card. I didn't like it myself, playing in that time, and it was just like you couldn't play anything really. It's either you're playing ADP or you're playing Pika Rom or you're playing something like that. It was just like there wasn't a whole lot of choice whatsoever. And like you said, games would be done in 1, 2, 3 turns. Depending on what your opponent had. You could, like if you're ADP, you knew they were going to get set up and you weren't going to get set up in the next few turns, you could just scoop right there because you're like, okay, they've got it, So I totally understand. And you know what? I can also say I am very grateful for ADP. I am grateful for how terrible that format was because it did bring a fantastic format that people can enjoy, which is Gym Leader Challenge. And
Josh, it's this phrase that I always say is hard times make strong men. And in this case, hard times make strong formats.
Yeah, exactly. And I could not agree more. I've loved it. But do you plan on going to any of the GLC 1K events at Full Grip? I know that you tweeted back over to Andrew Mahone, I believe, on X and said, do you need a caster for this? Was that a joke or?
No. I would love the cast. That'd be really fun. I think we, there are a lot of, again, with just how much knowledge you need to have about GLC format. I think that, it favors casters that, have that kind of history, which I think I do. So that was definitely not a joke. I would love to, to be a co-caster for some of those events. I think that'd be a lot of fun, and put a fire, an iron in the fire for me in terms of trying to get that to happen. That'd be much appreciated. But yeah, I mean, if I can't do that, then I'd love to be playing out there. Now that I'm in Jersey, makes things a little bit more difficult. It's not a drive away, and I got. So, in terms of getting there, it's doable. But I also have, focus right now this year is on standard format and getting out to those majors. And, I budget my time with my wife. before the season begins. And so I say, hey, here's what I'd like to go to. And then she says, hey, here's what I think is appropriate. And I say, yeah, you're probably right. Let's cut it back a little bit. But we kind of, have this give and take and like, okay, here's what, I project my season to look like. And here's what I may need to do to, have a shot at attending Worlds and all this thing. So it's kind of a back and forth dialogue that we have. And I've budgeted my time currently for standard format going to, the couple of ICs that are coming up and another regional to fill out my finishes there. But, if there's an opportunity, and again, Andrew has a kid, so that could be kind of a, hey, I could go see the baby, maybe I haven't seen the baby in a while. Let me go back to Ohio type of thing. Maybe there's some more negotiation to be had. I'd love to play. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see you there, whether it be me watching through stream or actually being there, depending on if I can sell some cards or something like that.
There you go.
Cool.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll go through all my stuff. I have sold cards before in the past, and I just hate the hassle.
I know it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
But I don't want to keep you too long. Jeff, do you have anything else for OJW?
Yeah, so, JW, when I was getting in the Gym Winter Challenge, one of the first videos I think I ever saw was your Meganium deck. I don't know if you even recall your Meganium deck that you were doing a little while ago. Yeah. I think the thumbnail was like grower, not shower, if I'm recalling it correctly. And you had, and Meganium was one of my favorite Pokemon. So, like, I think this was maybe my second deck, like, because I played Base Set to Fossil, was like the only card, my introduction to Pokemon forever. And then I came back and just played GLC. Those are the only two things I do with the Pokemon TCG. So I saw your list. I was like, I'm going to get Meganium, and that's kind of what stuck me in this format. So besides Andrew Mahone doing all the great things he's doing, like, you are one of the reasons where I'm at where I am today. So I got to give you some big love for this. So, I watched that video again before we had this interview too, just be like, this is the reason why I have a Guts Heracross in my little cubby over here. That's not seeing played any other deck, but I was like, it's JW's fault, but I love that card to death.
Jeff, that's an amazing story. I'm glad I could inspire you. That's really cool.
I think JW inspires all of us. He's always in our hearts, in our minds, always the voice in our head.
Thanks, fellas. Thank you.
So, last thing I want to say is I'm going to go to San Antonio, and I may play in the standard tournament because I've already paid for it, of course. But I'm in between playing Dialga Dawn, Dialga Duraludon, which I think is a pretty, nice streamlined type of deck, and it's just kind of fun, I hit hard. Dialga can hit twice, has some good potential, but also Miraidon. But I am not a big fan of Area Zero and, that type of thing. I just don't like the way it I feel like it takes away some of the consistency. I'm not sure. But an older-ish style of Miraidon, where I'm still playing like Night Academy and possibly Magneton, but I'm on the fence between those two. What are you thinking for San Antonio?
Man, for San Antonio, I mean, I've been talking with Jesse a bit, and I know he's going, he's thinking about Miraidon again because, Charizard feels like it had hit a peak in terms of its popularity at the last regional. What was that? Toronto, at least last.
Yeah.
In Toronto, didn't really have too much of a showing. Regidrago huge, and so I think Miraidon's a great choice. That if Regidrago remains popular, it's hard to go wrong because you figure a lot of the better players are going to play Regidrago. So you figure, if you can win those first couple rounds, you're probably, more likely to hit the better players, play the Regidrago deck. So, I think Miraidon is a great choice. And I think Classic Miraidon could work. Not a big fan of Battle Academy myself, or Night Academy myself, but I think the reason that you have these Area Zero builds is because there's so many good bench sitters that you want over the course of a game. I mean, you need to play, in my opinion, Squawkabilly, because you're an generally Arven deck, so you need that draw power. So you're going to Squawkabilly down turn one. You're going to, you want to use Pheasantipity, you want your mute, and that's not even getting into all of that you want. Yeah. So, I do think that there maybe, and then like Ladia, right? Like there's all these things. So, I think you could play a classic build, like even something like, what players are playing around Worlds, but I do feel like the Area Zero build is probably a bit better. I don't know. You talk about consistency, and I think that there's it's like yes and no, because you're pulling a lot more Pokemon out of your deck with with Miraidons or Nestballs and Ultra Balls. You're able to bench them, and that makes your generators more consistent because you have less Pokemon in your deck, right? So like you're thinking about it that way. In some ways, maybe it is more consistent than you're playing presumably the secret box. Like that's like the consistency god card. That card is just crazy. So I don't know. I might just push back. And then all that to say, I think the Arcaludon Dialga super fun. That's just like a crazy fun deck. So if that's how you're feeling that day, you wake up or that week and you're like, I just want to attach some energy and like blow stuff up. Like
that's kind of how I'm feeling. Is I just want to attach energy and just blow some stuff up that weekend.
Well, there you go. Then maybe you found.
Yeah, I think I found it. I just needed that little nudge over the end. But I think that about wraps it up. Jeff, do you have anything else?
I mean, my recommendation for San Antonio is just keep that hat, Josh. Just hat. And that's all I've got to say because I have no idea what's happening in Standard. I don't think I've a card. You guys were talking about stacks of cards earlier, and I was like, I just give those away. I don't even know what Standard card prices are. We did a GLC tournament, and just like all my VMAXs, I was just like, here's a stack for you 12-year-old kid that showed up to GLC. Like, I don't know if they're worth anything. So, that's my introduction to Standard is to give those cards away.
I basically kind of give them away too. But yeah, it's been fun, JW. I know that people can find you on X at Real John Walter, and but you also have a YouTube channel. Do you post on that regularly? I know that every now and then where you have some nice commentary.
Yeah, and I've kind of turned that into a bit more of a commentary channel, and I think, and that's actually the subject of another video that I need to talk about. Like it's I've shifted a lot of the time that I invested in the game now in coaching, so I do that a lot. I have a lot of regular students or people that I coach, and so that has taken kind of, again, we talk about the time budgeting with a couple of girls, a couple of and my wife. Like I got to be really focused with my evening hours, because I'll put the girls to bed and it'll be 8 o'clock. Okay, well, I got 2 to 3 hours to like, invest in something worthwhile. And that, maybe that's like, investing in my spiritual health, or maybe that's investing in my relationship with my wife, or, investing in Pokemon testing for, all these tournaments that are coming up, or maybe it's, putting out a YouTube video, or maybe it's building out my website called trainingcourt.app, where you can track all your tournament data. You can actually do it for GLC as well, track your tournament stuff.
Really?
So you can do like a tournament, tracker round by round type thing, so that, trainingcourt.app. So I code for that, or catching up on my day job. Like there's all these things that I invest in. So the YouTube channel, coming back to that. Yes, that is like a very much like, I need to get a little bit more regular, but it is kind of turning less from, the gameplay side of things and more toward just general commentary on the game and certain, happenstances or certain topics that I feel like are worthwhile to talk about. So that's at Flex Daddy Righteous. And you talked about X. You can also find my podcast at Tag Team Pokemon, which we record every single week. And that is mornings. Every single week. You find us on Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. I think that's just about covers it.
Sweet beans. And everybody else knows where they can find us by this point, at least. We just made a new separate YouTube channel for the Unfazed Facts podcast. So we might post some of like a nice trailer for this one, to push people over to that specific one over there so we don't miss that much traffic. But it's been awesome having you on, JW. It's been a real good pleasure, and I'm excited to see what you do in the future, get some more regional wins. I know that was one of your resolutions, get another regional win or an IC win, even better. And then maybe, depending on if you're casting or playing, getting another win over at the FGG GLC 1K. That would be awesome.
Absolutely. Always the goal. Every tournament I enter, I'm there to win. So, let's make it happen. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, bud. And you guys been listening to the Unfazed Facts podcast. I have been Josh Benson. We got Jeff Baisch and JW Kriewall. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you later.